One of the people on Fox News who occasionally is given the opportunity to speak some truth is a liberal commentator, Marie Harf. And she is on Outnumbered in the clip you're about to watch. I'll play it for you, then we'll discuss. It's originally on the topic of student debt relief, but is also connected to a more general point.
I think this is actually at heart a question about what we want our government money spent on. I mean, Lee is right. Nothing is free in Washington. We all know that. What Democrats will say during this election is we want to put government resources into helping out people with a child tax credit, right? Helping out people with child care, helping kids get a good education, helping kids have enough to eat, helping people who are part of this predatory, in many cases, loan system where they will never be able to buy a car or a house because they are saddled with this debt. Those things, by the way, help grow the economy. So I think Democrats will say we would rather put government resources to helping, and look, side note, much of the student loan debt relief goes to middle and lower income Americans. It's actually designed to help people who make less. Under that system, we would rather put money to help people raise kids, feed their kids, pay for college, than give tax breaks to the wealthy, which we know as of this week that the estimates about how much extending Donald Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations would cost the American people explodes the debt and deficit more than any of these programs that you are talking about.
Okay, so she was able to deliver, while they were quiet, most of this, and let me pull up, which connects to what she said, something that's really important. But then they eventually jumped in. But good to see. Often whenever great points are being made, the person gets dogpiled on Fox News, but there she was actually able to go through a really, really important point. Let's not get bogged down the specifics of that particular debate, because that's one we've had a lot about the student loan discussions and about different particular policies like the enhanced child tax credit, which I'm super supportive of, and the pragmatics of all that, because there's an underlying point here, which is, let's go back to what for so long, and I guess still now, was an effective branding exercise for Republicans. We're the fiscally responsible ones, right? And so one of the ways they're able to shoot down or justify shooting down good policies is by pretending like the Democrats are the ones who are fiscally irresponsible. We need to be the adults who have to prevent what otherwise seem like good policies, maybe, because otherwise we're going to jack up the debt and the deficit. We don't have that money to spend. Okay, so that's a thing you hear constantly. But the truth of the matter, as Axios reports, and we come back to this constantly, Trump ran up national debt twice as much as Biden. And you can even exclude COVID relief and look at only non-COVID relief, and still that phenomenon remains. So then the point is, okay, so if Trump's twice as irresponsible as Biden, in that sense, in spending money that we don't have, but his priorities in causing that are things like massive tax cuts that disproportionately go to those who already have so much, we should all agree that we should be doing things and trying to implement solutions to how much debt we have, okay? It's not ideal. Fair. How we go about that, though, is really important. And so as long as we're adding to our debt, as long as we're engaging in what some would describe as not the most fiscally responsible behavior, right? Would you rather someone who's half as irresponsible with that, but is doing it on things that actually serve people, like the enhanced child tax credit, or someone who's twice as irresponsible, but doing it on things like tax incentives for people who buy yachts, or making some of the biggest corporations even more rich? Is that really the priority? And should that be the person that we align with based on his priorities? Probably not. And so while we continue a discussion that we should be having about, while we properly serve people, can we be more fiscally responsible? Let's not be misled by Republicans that they're the ones who know how to do that clearly, or that when they do try to implement such solutions, they're going to serve everyday working people, because they're not. They're not. Today, we're going to be passing 800,000 subscribers. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Think about this, though. Now it's the home stretch to 1 million. And if all the people who regularly watch the show who aren't subscribed did subscribe today, we could be to 1 million instantly. That would be awesome. Make sure you've done it. Thank you so much. Back to the video. And one just random metric among many that we've been tracking is average jobs added monthly to the economy under different presidents. And when you compare Biden versus Trump, we can say Biden-Harris now versus Trump. Of course, if you do overall and include the COVID era, Trump's in the negatives. He left office with fewer jobs than whenever he took over. But when you even exclude the COVID era, still Biden far outpaced the job growth per month compared to Trump. And what was interesting was that was something Biden posted. But then Chris Hayes responded to it, the MSNBC host, saying, love the way they bend over backwards to be charitable by including the non-COVID numbers, which is an interesting thing. On a show like this, I really want you to be fully informed. So when we talk about comparing economic performance, I'll always give you, here's a comparison between Biden and Trump if you exclude, and as we just did with debt, here's if you exclude or include, and we shouldn't ignore Trump's handling of the pandemic, and we shouldn't ignore that Biden's numbers are also impacted by the pandemic, and how do they both handle it? Obviously, Biden-Harris handle much better, but it's interesting how even the person with the best incentive to just focus on the most raw number, which is Biden including everything, Trump including everything, that makes Trump's numbers look even worse. Still, Biden includes the non-COVID numbers because it really is a Democratic characteristic to bend over backwards to be charitable to Republicans at every turn, which is interesting. But despite those facts, you still have guys like this saying stuff like this.
Would you rather have 4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator or 4 years of President Biden reelected?
You know, you don't have to like the words that come out of the man's mouth, but sometimes in life we all need a good paddling from the principal to set our life on the right track. And this country does need a little bit of that. We need a little paddling. I mean, I was a problem child growing up, and it took a good leadership.
Wait. I'm going to be honest. I want to be transparent with you all sometimes. Most of the times, I've seen the clips. Sometimes, I'm like, oh, here, I see the little transcript. That's perfect. I'm going to include it in the segment, okay? This clip, I haven't watched this far. Is he saying... Oh, gosh, this is something. Okay, we talked about in a different segment, MAGA always making these weird connections to Trump and Jesus, and how they're so similar. Oh, maybe Trump's Jesus. I didn't think it was going to get weirder than that today, but him saying he needs Trump to paddle him, like his dad did to him. It's one way to look at it. All right, it's one urge to have, a whim to experience.
To set me straight. So I think our country does need some of that. So I hands down believe people wanted it 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So,
But they didn't vote that way, right?
I don't know about that.
You think it was a stolen election?
Without a doubt.
The other day, Donald Trump said on his first day he's going to be a dictator for a day.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Would you rather have Donald Trump as a dictator for 4 years or re-elect Joe Biden for 4 years?
I would rather have Donald Trump. I'd like to see the repeal the Roosevelt law so that he can be a president for a lot more than 4 years. But this country needs a dictator. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
You know, I can't even address now. I'm so disoriented. I can't address that guy's saying we need a dictator because I'm still too focused on a guy getting a grown-ass man being asked the question, do you think Trump should be a dictator? And saying sometimes you need to be paddled. Sometimes one's bum needs to be paddled by their father, and that's what I need from Trump right now. You know what? I'm figuring out now why our discussion of fiscal responsibility and average monthly job growth maybe isn't landing because there's something much more visceral going on here, it seems. And maybe I don't have the proper words to tap into what needs to be tapped into there to sway people. But let me just say, I wish they would see that all branding aside, all big strong man who's going to pat on my bum aside, it is not in your interest to vote for Trump. It's not in your interest so often to vote for Republican presidents, which is why over the last century Democrats have far outperformed in economic performance, because there's a fundamental discrepancy, even with the Trump version of conservatism, in how you approach the economy and where you think money should be allocated, resources should be allocated, who should be helped, who should be prioritized, as we talked about. And the way, with a bunch of flaws, that generally Democrats have been more likely to approach that clearly is also better for the economy at large. So you can both help people who need help, and by doing that, stimulate economic growth that benefits all Americans, including very wealthy Americans. See, isn't that just beautiful? But instead we choose policies too often that we've observed gazillion times don't work, but keep being branded differently. It's just the trickle-down economics thing over and over and over. And now they're just siding with that again because it comes in the form of someone who also wants to be a dictator. So he'll be a horrible authoritarian, and he'll disparage the people that you hate, and apparently you like that, and he'll paddle you on your bum, but also he'll do trickle-down economics, and that's not what you should want. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. There's a lot to think, okay? There really is. And you can support the show by clicking the join button below.